Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. A pretty big one here. The big news here, as you probably get from the title and thumbnail, Beast of the Four Nations is at last re-announced and is coming out later this year in September. So we don't actually have that long to wait at all. It's actually an earlier release date than I expected it to be. But yes, it has been re-released. We have a little bit more information on it, but really not that much considering the book was effectively announced a while ago. And just to be clear about this, how long we've been waiting, let me just show you my video from back when we got the original announcement of this book. Here we go. You can see me there. But yeah, this is May 2021. Nearly 4 full years ago, this book was announced, scheduled for release, as you can see here, in October 2021. Obviously didn't come out, had a whole thing where it got pushed and pushed and pushed. Then it was basically cancelled, awaiting re-release at some point. We heard news a few months back that artwork is being done on the book. Then, of course, the big thing that gave us a lot of confidence was the anniversary press release just last month highlighted that Dark Horse would have a new illustrated hardcover coming out this year for the anniversary, and that was obviously Beast of the Four Nations, given that we knew work was still being done. And here is the announcement. So Variety got the proper announcement here, but it is the usual thing of it's basically just the listing picked apart and put out into a bunch of paragraphs with some text. There's really not a lot of like extra information here, really. It sums it up pretty nicely, and we'll get into it here. But actually, let's just go to the listings overall. So they are now up on Dark Horse. This is actually the one thing that didn't happen with the original release of the book. It was announced basically everywhere, like you can see Previews World and stuff like that, but it was never up on the Dark Horse website. This one now is, so it's finally actually happening. So here is the standard edition here, just the hardcover, just the book, your basic version of this. So it's still called Beast of the Four Nations, but now it kind of has the full subtitle, you know, creatures from Avatar and Korra, which it had before, of course, but it's more directly, like you can see here, it's on the cover itself. It also has the Avatar logo over the top, which is a little bit different from the original cover, which you can see here, which didn't have an Avatar logo, didn't have the subtitle bit on the bottom. It was just Beast of the Four Nations with like a line over the top and the bottom. I don't mind the slight changes here. The font maybe is a little bit better and fitting for Avatar. The only criticism I would have of the new cover is just that, why do you have Avatar The Last Airbender as like the title logo, but then you mentioned that the book is creatures from Avatar and Korra? In that case, should it not just be Avatar Legends at the top, Beast of the Four Nations, featuring animals from this and this? But is it not Avatar Legends because it's not including animals from the novels? And then we get into a weird spot, and it's just like, what are we doing here? So, the official description here is basically similar to what we had before. Dive into the world of Avatar and Korra, in-depth exploration of its animal inhabitants. Part of what everyone loves about the Four Nations are all the strange and wonderful and scary creatures that inhabit them, from the flying bison, elephant koi, singing groundhogs, purple pentapus. Look to this hardcover collection for images and information on Avatar and Korra's creatures large and small, including many from the spirit world. So they keep the details from before, that it actually does have spirit world kind of based stuff here as well. Now, I'm wondering what that means with regards to, like, are we only including spirit animals here, or like are just any spirit is going to be available for that? I'm not really sure. So creators Mike and Brian. Writer is now John O'Brien. We didn't know that before, so that's obviously a writer from the original show, which is fantastic. Artists, various, because it's quite a lot of pages of art, of course. So there's a lot of them, a lot of colorists. The cover artist is Devin L. Kurtz. We've known that for a while. Publication date, September 23rd, 2025. And obviously that means September 24th, 2025 for comic book stores. That's going to be the release date. This is a Tuesday, and then the Wednesday, the next day, is going to be the comic book store release. We have, I guess, confirmed page count, 128 pages. That's perhaps a little bit disappointing, because I think all the previous listings, I think, did list the book as being about 200 pages, or I think just slightly less than 200, but to find out that it's actually only a bit over, 100. It's still a lot of page count, obviously. It's still going to give us a lot of time to do stuff, but it's maybe, you maybe question, like, how in-depth is it going to be overall? Because it is a part art book and part kind of animal encyclopedia type thing that will have lore, because it will have information on the animals. It's just that we don't know really what the exact format is. Is this a case where it's just each animal gets its own page and there's a few images, or one image and then there's some text about it? And then what text is there about it? Does it go into details like the height, or like how long the animal's going to live? Or is it just a brief explanation of they live in this part of the world, they're from this nation, this is what's going on with them? So you wonder, like, how much new information is there going to be? Like, for instance, the lion turtles, will they talk about details that we're wondering, that we're almost waiting for an update on, of like, is it still the case that there is only one living lion turtle in like the ATLA era onwards, that one that helped Aang? Or because that bit of lore comes from like before beginnings ever happened, are they going to update that to like be actually, there's rumors that there are multiple of them still out there? We just don't know. Same when it comes to, say, something like the dragons. Is that going to go into detail about, like, here's how many different colors of dragons that there are, here's the situation with dragons in the present day when it comes to, like, are they extinct, are they not extinct, because Zuko has one in Druk, but Ran and Shaw are still there. What does that mean for other dragons? That sort of idea. That's what we're kind of talking about here. That sort of key information there, of course. And yeah, the standard release is going to be $40. But if you want the deluxe edition, of course, which is this one here, this one actually has changed a decent bit. So you can see straight away, brand new lithograph here, image compared to before. They have actually changed the logo on the slipcase, and you can see that it is going to have the foiling on the Beast of the Four Nations text. The old one looked like this. So you can see it actually had a different image for the slipcase. It actually had Appa, or I guess a sky bison, with all the different footprints of the animals, which I thought was actually very cool. And the previous lithograph was actually just the cover for the book, which is never the most exciting thing. So that's kind of cool. I think the cabbage merchant with the ostrich horses is a lot like nicer of an image. It actually feels like a proper print. The image that they've gone for here is instead the kind of newer iconography that they have here. This is more meant to sort of represent the kind of four elements in one. It's like a symbol that's sort of meant to represent everything together. Some of the games use this as a bit of a wild card symbol, that like if you roll this, pick which element you want it to represent, sort of idea. So that's kind of interesting, but I do think the other one was a little bit more flavorful for the overall product. But it's just the image on the side of the slipcase. It is what it is. We just want this to finish the deluxe set at long last with all the other art books, which it should still be doing. They don't really mention it here kind of as such, but I hope that is still the case overall. Yeah. Special edition includes slipcase, deluxe cover treatment, art print, and folio to celebrate, what's going on here. This one is $80, so the pricing is pretty much the same as a lot of the other ones. It's just that actually, because the book is a decent bit shorter than some of the other hardcovers, it just comes across as a bit more expensive because of that. But it's the first hardcover book that has like full-on brand new content in a very long time. Everyone has been awaiting this book for so long. It's just so great to finally have this one coming out, and especially because they've done the announcement in a way now where it's not that far away. We're like 6 months away from this book, and it's not like an eternity away. It's finally the set's going to be complete. This book's going to be out before we have a lot of other stuff. That's great to know. And yeah, they were posting about it on social media. They said more details will follow shortly, which I guess probably would have to be preview pages. As far as I'm aware, I checked, Edelweiss doesn't have a listing for this up just yet, which is perhaps where the preview pages might come from. That's probably the last thing that's really needed, is just that, okay, you've told us technically what this book is, but how does it really work on a page-to-page basis? That's, I think, the last thing that they need to do to kind of convince us of what's happening here. But yes, both editions of the book are happening. Some slight changes happening, I think mostly for the better, and it'll be eager to see which animals are included. How in-depth do they go in terms of hitting every single animal that we know from Avatar and Korra, plus what spirits get included? Hard to know. But anyway, with that out of the way, we can jump into this one here. So this is just a reminder that you only have a few days left if you want to basically pre-order Journey of Aang, the board game. So you have until March 31st to late back the GameFound campaign here, and of course, if you already have backed and you maybe haven't done all of your pledge stuff, you also kind of need to get that done, and that is kind of locking in your shipping address, paying for your shipping, and adding in some of this extra stuff that they have here, like painting upgrades if you are getting a bunch of the miniatures and stuff like that, plus some of the extras, you know, just finalizing your order type thing. But yes, if you miss the backing campaign, you can late pledge at this point. It's open, but only for a few more days. It's a fun game, but you know, only a few days left to kind of back it. I think there will be a retail release, but you will miss out on, I think, a bunch of the exclusives if you don't do the kind of pledge at this point. So there is that. Final thing I want to talk about is this. So keeping this to the end so I can have a bit of a discussion on this, because this needs to be more than just, this is what Faith Erin Hicks said. Because there is some context that's needed here, and that sort of thing. So, Ashes of the Academy is now out everywhere. And we have seen some of the initial reception to the book. I would say, broadly speaking, it's been received pretty well across the board by the fan base. The only exception, I think, really being a specific group of like Azula fans who seem to have issues with kind of everything with the book. And in particular, they latched onto one particular panel of May saying another Azula fan for the garbage heap, and they've been using that to really highlight that here's why this book is bad. They're even taking shots at us as fans within the book. Look, it's May calling us out, breaking the fourth wall, meta commentary in the book on fans. Now, most of you, I think, out there who have read the book in context with the previous pages and are aware that this is May in the middle of a fight. She throws a book at a Dai Li agent who is saying a bunch of stuff about how he's been lying in wait for like the grand return of Azula, kind of like the great leader basically. She throws the book at him and says the line, another Azula fan for the garbage heap. So she's calling the Dai Li agent an Azula fan, to mock him for his almost zealotry when it comes to Azula, because he has been lying in wait, waiting for her return, when May's whole point throughout this book has basically been that the Academy helped to create Azula as this like ultimate leader, ultimate product of the Academy. But she failed when it came to being the Fire Lord. She was so in her head and paranoid about everyone around her, she banished everyone. And this is the leader that apparently, Dai Li agents and Headmistress Pearl is waiting for. As May is literally just mocking that concept, that really, she's the one you're being hyper loyal towards. No, you're just a fan of Azula and you don't get it. That's what she's doing here. She's mocking. As Faith Erin Hicks even says in her opinion, the comment is May's opinion on the situation, not the writer's opinion. So let's get into what she actually says here, now that we have, I think, a little bit of context for this. Faith Erin Hicks, the writer of Ashes of the Academy, says this: I don't engage with Avatar fandom stuff. However, people have been coming into my mentions, and this particular stuff is really over the top. So, just to clear a couple of things up, May's comment about Azula fans in Ashes of the Academy is her opinion, not mine. I don't think I need to point this out, but May and Azula don't have a great relationship post-show. She might have strong opinions about Azula followers. That's the intent of the scene. 2. I cannot emphasize enough that May's line is not some sort of meta-commentary on fandom. May is literally throwing shade during a fight scene, as I described. And 3. I'm an Azula fan, big fan of hers, one of my favourite characters in the show, one of my top 10 villains of all time. I love Azula. So if anyone's getting tossed in the garbage heap, it's me, it's my garbage heap, queen of the Azula Garbage Mountain. Thank you for your time. It's a good response, given that I don't think, in a way, she should have ever had to give a response to this, because I don't think that panel should have ever come to light as some sort of a big controversial thing that created an issue, because I think if you read it with just the base level overview, it's very clear what is happening. She's throwing a book at the Daily Agent while mocking him for his excessive focus on Azula. It is not trying to say anything in universe about fans, because even if you do interpret it that way, how does it really make any sense? Like, what sort of an amazing jab at fans is that, even that, like, saying Azula fans should be on the garbage heap? This is a writer who loves the character of Azula, so why would she insult Azula fans when she's one of them herself? She clearly likes writing the character, so what are we even saying here, kind of, ultimately, in that regard? And that's the real kind of, like, issue here, is just that why did people rush towards the in-depth meta commentary analysis of the scene before the basic here's what's happening in the scene analysis? And I think part of it is that I definitely got the impression from some of the stuff that was going around, I don't think everyone who was commenting on this situation had read the book in full. I think a lot of it was people saw the screenshot of that one panel, that one speech bubble of May saying what she says, and just went off. No context about what character in the book she's saying it to, or anything like that. Just the fact that Azula fan appears as text in this comic seemed to just set people off. And people are trying to defend it to a certain degree with the idea that, like, but why didn't she say Azula loyalist? It's because she's mocking the guy. Why would she treat the way he is super seriously by assessing him as, like, one of Azula's true disciples and just, like, being super serious about it? No, she's like, no, you're just a fan of Azula. Like, that's nonsense. That's effectively what she's saying to this guy who's saying these things in the book. So there's that. The second point, yeah, like, why would you assume that the writer would in any way ever even attempt to put meta kind of fourth wall commentary in the book about the fandom? And that, like, that would be something that gets, like, approved, that she writes it in the book, it goes through Avatar Studios approval, and everyone's just laughing about, yeah, we're going to get those Azula fans. Like, really? Is that what you think, like, is going to happen, and how this all goes down? Like, that's just not going to happen. And I think the big thing in this is as well, saying that about the writer is a pretty big accusation. It's a super harsh criticism, because it's very much going against, like, it's accusing the writer of not having almost, like, integrity as a writer, because you can't trust them to not give their thoughts on the fandom in an official book. Like, that's why she came out to defend this, because you can't let something like this go, because that is a harsh criticism or accusation to level at a writer. Is they literally wrote fan criticism into the book. You can't say that lightly as a fan, accusing a writer of that. And that's why this commentary, I think, has to happen. Again, I don't think the whole situation should have ever happened, because it was just like, hey, that was not what that scene was about at all. But the second you made it almost, like, personal with the writer, you prompted this response. This had to be said to just make it clear to people that, hey, you have gone off on a tangent, and it was not at all what the book was actually about. Come back down to earth on this one, please. And that's the thing here, is that I hope some of the people who really went in on this can maybe reflect back on the situation with a little bit more kind of hindsight now, and really realize that maybe they overreacted, maybe they hit reply on those comments a little bit too quickly without considering what they were saying, and just reflect on the idea of, why did you read through that scene and your first thing that came to mind was, that panel, it's talking about me. Why did you just assume that that was the case? Like, that's the mentality that I don't understand in all of this. The people assuming that that's what this scene was in any way trying to do. And I think just this is a case of, hey, this is a pretty strong response here where there's no apology in this, because there was nothing here to apologize for. It's just, hey, I didn't do this. Can you guys kind of like not do this anymore? Because, you know, I'm an Azula fan. And it's also, you know, you have to keep in mind, why is this the case? Why doesn't she as a fan engage with the fandom? Because stuff like this happens. This is why a lot of creators are not overly willing to often do interviews, and why we don't hear a lot about these books outside of the really obvious marketing channels, is because most of the time the creators don't feel super comfortable saying stuff online, because fans can be overbearing about specific things or about specific characters in this case, and you don't blame them for very much keeping themselves to themselves, because stuff like this can happen. So I'm happy she got this response out, because I think it's been met with a lot of positivity, and the people who have kind of turned this into an issue, it's very much like, what are you doing? Like I don't think many people are really siding with the idea of this is like a wrong defense, that no, people were right to criticize this line for being in the book. Not really. No. This is the case here. This is a strong response. It hits all the right beats, without being maybe super scathing against the fans as well. It's just, hey, cool it a bit. So the tone was right here, I think, in terms of the approach from Faith Erin Hicks here. So I hope this doesn't impact things kind of going forward too much, but, you know, anytime I think a writer feels like they have to put out like a quote-unquote official statement, you know it's never a great thing that's happened. And I think that's going to be my kind of thoughts on this. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this, of course. Are you planning to get the board game in the last few days that are remaining? But the big one, at long last, after many years of waiting, Beast of the Four Nations is finally going to come out. Unfortunately, there's not that much extra information, because it's effectively just the same information we had before, but the deluxe edition is slightly different, and we have what seems to be a more accurate page count for the book as well. Let me know your thoughts below, but otherwise that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.